This is Mac OS Ken.
Tons of notes from financial folk. France gives app tracking transparency the okay, and a trailer for an Apple TV drama. It is Wednesday, the 21st of January, 2026. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from Mac OS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by Clean My Mac. Try 7 days free and use my code MacOSKen20 for 20% off at clnmy.com/MacOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSKen. Financial analysts were back in force after the Monday holiday. Lots of notes from Wall Street way. Not going to say they were rushed, but I would have expected them closer to Apple's first quarter earnings call, which isn't until a week from tomorrow. It's possible that Apple watching analysts hope to slow the fall prompted by the Mad Would-Be King's continuing instability tour, coming soon to a town near you, whether you think so or not. Wall Street Post's biggest daily drop in 3 months, said the headline from Reuters, which went on to say, Trump Greenland tariff threat triggers wide sell-off. Sorry, I know how queasy people get when I talk about anything besides Apple, so let's talk about Apple as if it existed in a bubble. Except we can't. Maybe trying to slow the sell-off or staunch the bleeding on a day that saw Apple shares drop close to 9 points, nearly 3.5%. It was the Wall Street singers. We'll start with a note from Evercore analyst Amit Daryanani, posted by Apple 3.0. Focusing on next week's earnings call, AdRock's looking for numbers that would beat the street. The big blob of analysts expects Apple to report December quarter revenue of $137.4 billion on earnings per share of $267. Daryanani and friends are looking for revenue of $140.5 billion on earnings per share of $271. Team Evercore is looking for iPhone revenue growth of 17% versus the street's expectation of 11%. Despite softer App Store data, Daryanani is looking for growth of 13% for Apple's services segment. He figures that'll be helped by all those people who bought all those iPhones last quarter, signing up for Apple Care and other subscriptions. Now, if you're worried about Apple and memory prices, you should not be. Yet. Echoing sentiments he stated before, Daryanani sees Apple as more insulated through the December and March quarters due to long-term agreements that secure NAND supply and pricing. Most of the street is more worried about the March quarter than he and his, putting Evercore ahead of the others in terms of current quarter expectations as well. In fact, the analyst has put Apple on his firm's tactical outperform list, indicating an expectation of short-term upside. He also says that Apple remains his firm's top pick for calendar year 26. Mr. Daryanani has an outperform rating on Apple shares. His price target on the shares is $330. It has been a rough 2026 for Apple shares so far. They were down about 5% since the start of the year, before the markets opened on Tuesday. To the analysts at Goldman Sachs, that means time to buy. Apple 3.0 posted a note from Goldman's Michael Ng on Tuesday. He thinks Apple's 5% drop is tied to worries over component costs as well as the App Store softening about which we keep hearing. But he says he and his view the stock weakness as a buying opportunity into a continuation of the iPhone refresh cycle. He sees revenue for iPhone growing 9% this year, followed by 9% growth again in fiscal year 27. On the App Store softening, Ng thinks growth in services revenue should be supported by momentum in other categories like iCloud Plus and Apple Care Plus. The analyst sees additional support coming from new ad formats in the App Store. That is likely tied to Apple adding more sponsored ads in App Store search results and maybe removing the blue background from sponsored results in the App Store. Services will be so strong in his estimation that they should help support gross margins, helping to offset potential headwinds from memory cost inflation. As for iPhone, things are about to get... According to the analyst, iPhone demand in the next 2 years is likely to benefit from the iPhone Fold. He's expecting shipments of 4.5 million units of the foldable in the fall of this year and 25.4 million units through fiscal year 2027. A shift to a biannual iPhone launch cycle with the iPhone 18 base and iPhone Air 2 delayed from fall of 26 to spring of 27 will also be a benefit. And he apparently thinks new software upgrades with iOS and Siri 2.0 will spur sales. Goldman Sachs has a buy rating on Apple shares. The firm's price target on the shares is $320. Kind of doing the agree-disagree thing was Citi analyst Atif Malik. Yahoo Finance had that analyst seeing big things for Apple's anticipated foldable iPhone. Quoting his note, with the premium pricing of around $2,000 and timing of the launch, we expect limited foldable iPhone shipment of around 8 million units in 26, or about 3% of total iPhone shipment, which will likely grow to 20 million units in 2027. Like a growing number of Apple watchers, he thinks iPhone Fold, or whatever Apple calls it, will launch this fall, along with iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max. So where's that disagreement I mentioned? Well, that resides in component costs and their effect on the Cupertino company. Citing margin risk for the surge in memory chip prices, Malik lowered his price target on Apple shares from $330 to $315. That's about $64 higher than Apple's Tuesday close, though. It likely explains his buy rating on Apple stock, despite the lower target. Agreeing with Goldman's Ang on his buy on weakness advice is, wanna guess you never will, okay I'll tell ya, Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives. Apple 3.0 posted part of a note he wrote on Tuesday. Speaking specifically to Tuesday's market weakness, Ives wrote, we would be buying many of our Ives AI 30 names, including NVIDIA, Microsoft, Palantir, CrowdStrike, Nebius, Apple, Palo Alto, Google, and Tesla. The back-and-forth war of words between Trump and the EU will give investors another opportunity to own the tech winners, and despite the bears always trying to yell fire in a crowded theater, the AI revolution is still in the early days of playing out, and this soap opera this week is not changing that dynamic in our view. Well, as long as money... Mr. Ives has an Outperform rating on Apple shares. His price target on the shares is $350. More news in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, Clean My Mac, your solution for care and control of your Mac. I mentioned earlier this week that Clean My Mac helps you update the apps you use and get rid of the apps you don't. It might sound crazy, wanting an app to get rid of other apps, but uninstalling isn't always easy. Apps don't just live in the Applications folder. Pieces and parts are installed all over your Mac. While that can be great for optimal performance of that app, it's kind of nightmarish when you want all those pieces and parts to go away. Clean My Mac takes care of that. It'll clear leftover data and hidden files that are just taking up space and gumming up the works, keeping them from gumming up your work. That plus other features make Clean My Mac the tool for controlling, optimizing, and maintaining your Mac. And you can try it free for 7 days. Use my code MacOSKen20 for 20% off at clnmy.com/MacOSKen. That's 20% off after your free trial. And you want to make sure MacOSKen is all caps in both cases. That way they know where you heard about it and you get that discount. Get tidy today. Try 7 days free and use my code MacOSKen20 for 20% off at clnmy.com/MacOSKen. Again, MacOSKen is all caps, both places. Use code MacOSKen20 for 20% off at clnmy.com/MacOSKen. Good news for user privacy in France. Mac Rumors says a judge there has ruled that Apple's app tracking transparency can keep doing its thing. Its thing? Stopping apps and services from tracking user activity across other apps and the web without getting the user's permission. It's hard to believe that was ever a question, isn't it? And yet the piece says last year, French competition officials fined Apple 150 million euros. They indicated at the time that making apps ask permission to track users was an abuse of market dominance and that it unfairly disadvantaged both third-party app developers and advertisers. The question now, where France goes, will other European nations follow? Apple and its users may well hope so. Mac Rumor says the Cupertino company warned last year that it may be forced to stop offering app tracking transparency in the EU due to regulatory pressures in countries like France, Italy, Germany, and Poland, and from the overarching European Commission. If you've got a magic keyboard for your fancy and, dare I say, schmancy iPad Air or iPad Pro, that keyboard may well have a firmware update. 9to5Mac says Apple added a slew of those on Tuesday. The piece says the firmware update covers Magic Keyboard models for the M4 and M5 iPad Pro in both 11 and 13-inch sizes, and also includes the Magic Keyboard designed for the 11 and 13-inch M3 iPad Air. What do the updates do? Well, they update, don't they? Past that, we don't really know. As for getting them into your keyboard, you cannot. Not by trying anyway. Like the way AirPods updates used to be, Apple support docs say firmware updates are automatically delivered in the background while the Magic Keyboard is actively paired to a device running macOS, iOS, iPadOS, or tvOS. And finally today, the Jennifer Garner drama, The Last Thing He Told Me, is echoing back onto Apple TV soon. Making way for it, the Cupertino streamer has posted a Season 2 trailer on YouTube. Serving as a sequel to the first season, it makes sense that the second season would be based on Laura Dave's best-selling sequel novel, The First Time I Saw Him. They're not changing the name of the series, though, which also makes sense. Season 1 of The Last Thing He Told Me is available to stream now on Apple TV. The first episode of Season 2 hits the Cupertino streamer on Friday, the 20th of February. macOS Ken, brought to you by me, and sponsored by Clean My Mac. Try 7 days free and use my code MacOSKen20 for 20% off at clnmy.com/MacOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/MacOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can find me on Mastodon, MacOSKen at mastodon.social. You can also send me an email, info@macosken.com. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.
Leonard likes this post.